Hello everyone, on today's installment of the 1 Year Life Transformation Challenge, we're going to talk about the one, the only, the 14th Dalai Lama. Well, there's 14 of him, but at the moment he's the one, the only.
Hey Brad, I'm Dave from Los Baños and I'm writing a paper on the Dalai Lama and would love your help.
Hello everyone, as discussed in the intro, today I want to talk about that incredible spiritual leader, which I'm sure you've heard about, the Dalai Lama. And incredibly important to us as we go through this 12-month journey is to find mentors, role models, and people maybe outside the normal perspective of the media, not the normal celebs, the Kim Kardashians and the Kanye West and stuff like this, but the individuals who have found their source and making great strides in human development. And the Dalai Lama is right up there with some of the best. So I'm excited to talk to you about him today, give you some information and some guides, and we'll talk about how he's touched me personally and how you can get more information about this great leader. As always, I'm going to begin with a quote, and that quote is, "This is my simple religion. There is no need for temples, no need for complicated philosophy. Our own brain, our own heart is our temple. The philosophy is kindness." I'll read that one more time. "This is my simple religion. There is no need for temples, no need for complicated philosophy. Our own brain, our own heart is our temple. The philosophy is kindness." Wow, isn't that refreshing? You know, with so much extremism from so many religions at the moment, it's so refreshing to hear someone say that our temple is our heart, and it's as simple as kindness, you know. And that's what really drove me to Buddhism, is the fact that you won't find many people on the street preaching Buddhism. You won't find anyone trying to convert anyone, because ultimately the way the worldview of Buddhism is that we have one global consciousness, this beautiful source essence, and everyone has their own journey, and they'll make decisions to make their own journey. I love that non-interventionist sort of approach that Buddhism takes. You also see that the Dalai Lama mentions no temples. The Buddha, you know, that incredible glimpse into the divine that was around 450 BC, used to say, "Once I'm gone, I never want it to be heard of me being worshipped ever." He never wanted to be worshipped. In fact, there's in Tibet, there's a temple with the Buddha, and the Buddha's ears have been removed from the temple just to really pay respect to that quote, that he never wanted to hear himself being worshipped. As humans, sometimes we like to, you know, put images up to remind us, and that's what Buddhists do a lot as well. They put up images of the Buddha to remind them that, you know, what are the core teaching, what is life all about. So, who is the 14th Dalai Lama? His real name is Tenzing, and the concept of the Dalai Lama, which we'll start with, has been around since 1391, and it's really the political and spiritual leader of the Tibetan people. They are a fundamentally Buddhist culture. In fact, you know, around that area of Nepal is where the Buddha was born. And rather than have, you know, military juntas or dictators or politicians run the show, they've had a Dalai Lama run the show for quite a while. And you know, they've been a very, very peaceful nation for a long time. In 1959, unfortunately, that changed with communist China deciding to invade Tibet and to take that land. Now, obviously, China had their own reasons, but it caused a real challenge in Tibet, which is a really spiritual country. So most of the Buddhists fled. Those who didn't flee, unfortunately, were tortured, and many of them murdered. And ultimately, their sacrifices really showed that the Tibetan people want autonomy, and they want to, like all humans, have the freedom to do their own thing. In 1959, the Dalai Lama had to leave the Himalayas. So Tenzing, the 14th Dalai Lama, fled from the Chinese invasion. And the reason we know him is because he's been travelling the world. He has no home anymore. His home is occupied by a foreign country. And that's why he visits Australia, United States, Canada, you know, all the countries of the globe. And look, I've said in an email to the Dalai Lama that, you know, looking back, I mean, it could be the greatest thing for Buddhism is that he had to travel and he had to expand his message. Now, the concept of the Dalai Lama and how Tenzing became the 14th Dalai Lama is remarkable. So the concept of reincarnation is that the one consciousness that is manifest, the divine, takes many forms, and those forms can be varied. The consciousness of the Dalai Lama is reincarnated regularly after the death of the Dalai Lama, and the job of the priests in the Himalayas and Tibet is to find the next Dalai Lama. And it's a really cool process, and I'll put some links to this video on how they find it. But basically they take some of the personal effects of the Dalai Lama, normally maybe a comb, a mirror, or a bowl. And they place it with, let's just say, in this case, I remember maybe for Tenzing, it was a comb. They take maybe 50 combs, and they bring children who were born at the right time for the reincarnation into a room, and they say, which is your comb? Some of the kids will go, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Some kids will pick a comb, and it won't be the Dalai Lama's comb. But every once in a while, a kid will pick a comb, and it will be a personal effect of the previous Dalai Lama. And then the priest will take that child and take them through a series of steps, and it's quite scientific. I mean, they don't just say, this bloke looks like he has the same eye colour as the last Dalai Lama. It's an amazing process. I won't go too much into it, but it's really beautiful, and I'll post some links that you can follow after this video. So that search obviously finds the Dalai Lama, and we're very lucky to have the current Dalai Lama travelling the world. He's an interesting guy because his daily rituals include, I think, 4 hours of meditation in the morning. Now, that can sometimes sound a bit self-serving, but those 4 hours are dedicated to what's called metta. And metta is expanding love. So you're sending out love towards the world and compassion in order to affect change and to create more love and compassion in the world. So he devotes himself to about 4 hours of that a day, just sending out positive messages. You might never know, but he could be affecting the kindness and love in the world every single day through this method. And he also he writes books and lectures. His take on Westerners is really novel as well, and this was extraordinary. I was hearing a speech by the Dalai Lama, and obviously one of the challenges for many people trying to understand people like the Dalai Lama is they're foreign. They look foreign. And we have xenophobia, naturally almost built into most cultures. So you look at this bloke, he's wearing a robe, maybe he's not wearing shoes. What's going on here? So he was asked the question how he felt about so many Westerners becoming Buddhist. And his answer was really revolutionised the way I see Buddhism because, well, I'll give you his answer. His answer was that he loves the fact that so many Westerners are becoming Buddhist, and he thinks it's really beautiful that we're getting such variety in the amount of people that are joining the Buddhist cause. And he said, however, Westerners need to be careful that, having a Buddhist Tibetan dress, a Buddhist Tibetan house, Buddhist Tibetan furniture, Buddhist Tibetan mannerisms is not Buddhist, it's Tibetan. You can be a Buddhist wearing a Nike hoodie. I talk about this in my book. You can be a Buddhist and drive a nice car. It's okay. As long as those things don't own you and you understand the true essence of love, you don't need to conform to anything. You can have tattoos on your face. You can have whatever you want, whatever you feel is part of your path, you can have. There's no rules. And I think that's really beautiful because we all are individuals and we express individualism. And sometimes religion puts people into boxes. People have never been put into boxes. You look at our natural evolution to human beings, we are natural creatures, and really we all express our creativity differently, and Buddhism is all about that. So some of the interesting developments, obviously China is in a difficult spot, which they've created. They're in a difficult spot where the Dalai Lama is very important to the Himalayan people, and the Dalai Lama just turned 80, so he's about to leave this flesh bot that he's incarnated into now. And the Chinese government have said that they will help find the next Dalai Lama. Now that's a little bit problematic because obviously they have an agenda. So the next Dalai Lama, the Chinese government will come in and try and find the next reincarnation. So the Dalai Lama's made a big call and said that he's choosing not to be reincarnated because he believes it's best that his role is now fulfilled and allow his people to search for their own path. I think that's just incredible, these thoughts and concepts that are sometimes foreign to us, but the amount of sacrifice people are willing to give. You've got to understand that reincarnation, stopping reincarnation is a big call. But the Dalai Lama is happy to do it in order to help his people. So that's a little bit of info on the Dalai Lama. You'll hear him, visit White House and the president and stuff. But this is a guy who's been through a tremendous amount of pain. He's seen his country ripped from him. He's seen torturing and he's seen, deaths in his own country. And he rocks around just giving people hugs and showing them love. I think that's the true test of a man. He has every right to be bitter and angry and to spew, resentment towards the Chinese, but he doesn't. In fact, one of his quotes was, he spoke to a Buddhist monk who was tortured brutally by the Chinese. And he said, what was the most scary moment for you? Then it's the Dalai Lama talking to one of his monks. What was the scariest moment? You're in prison, you're getting electrodes and all stuff to you. What was the scariest moment? And the Buddhist monk's reply was, the scariest moment was when I thought I could possibly lose compassion and love for the Chinese people. I thought, wow, that's great. That was his biggest fear. Well, not that he's going to get his head chopped off, but that he might lose the love for the people torturing him. That's the next level stuff you want to get to, the enlightenment, the lifting of your soul that we're all trying to travel to, and we're using people like the Dalai Lama on this 1 year life transformation journey to find. Remember, you're a ghost driving a meat-covered skeleton made of stardust. You've got nothing to be afraid of. People like the Dalai Lama can come into your life and really open up new doors and new ideas. So another great, helpful role model for us on our 1 year journey. I can't wait to see you tomorrow for tomorrow's video, but until then, goodbye.